Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sarah Sperber and I am a realtor in the Northern Nevada market. And on today's video, as I do every single month, I'm gonna give you a market update. So this is where I will be looking at the month in arrears with all of the data that was just published and captured by our local MLS. And I will be analyzing it with you and also, of course, giving you predictions for what's to come as we look into the months ahead and also provide valuable insight for both buyers and sellers. So make sure you watch to the end because that's some of the good stuff. If you guys could just take a quick minute and hit that like and that subscribe button, it lets me know that you like the content I'm creating and I should keep going. Or if you don't, you can leave a comment below and I will take notes. But without further ado, let's dive into today's video. For the closeout of June, month over month, we saw price tags increase. No surprise there. This is typical in the summer months, though the increase that we saw was not as big as I would have predicted, to be honest with you. It was less than 2% higher than at the closeout of May, landing at $599,975. So not a huge jump, but a jump nonetheless. This is good news for sellers because it's telling us that, hey, prices are still remaining high. You can still get top dollar for your home despite the high interest rates and all the other challenges that are in place for buyers at this time. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself. There is some good news for buyers coming in this video, so just stay with me, you guys. Coming up next, we have number of closed sales. This took kind of a steep dive in a direction I would not have predicted. Normally in the summer months, we do see the market really heat up, and May was really looking to be on that sort of trajectory, but number of closed sales for month over month closeout of June landed at an even 400, which is nearly 10% lower than it was at the closeout of May. This is also almost 11% lower than it was a year ago at this time, which is kind of concerning. It's kind of telling us that there's less market activity overall. This has been a really tough market in general ever since the mortgage rates started climbing just about 2 years ago. There are a lot of factors at play here, but we are kind of seeing this sort of vapor lock wherein buyers are having a set of challenges because the cost of borrowing money is so high, which in turn is making it hard for sellers to sell. So the other thing we're looking at is that sellers who got into their homes during the pandemic era when interest rates were super low are having a hard time stomaching the natural progression, which would be to upgrade and kind of sell the home that they're in now. But a lot of people don't want to sell their home because they know that to get into a new home or to upgrade, they're going to be taking on a much bigger monthly payment than they have right now. So it's creating some stagnant plateauing in our market and across the nation. But there's going to be more on that, so stay with me. Our next metric we're going to look at is median days to contract. So this had a pretty big increase. Again, this is a surprise to me. If you watched my video last month, I was predicting that we were coming into the hot times, coming into the summer months where we normally see the market pick up at a rapid rate, but we are kind of seeing this plateau, I will call it, and this metric is indicative of that. Days on market landed at 16 days. I believe at the end of last month that was 11 days, so that is a pretty significant increase. Overall, this is still a hot seller's market. However, we are kind of seeing a bit of a plateau, and maybe we are on the brink of a shift here, but it's kind of hard to say at this point. We are going to have to look at this data again at the end of July and kind of further assess, but let's keep going before we get into my analysis of this. Percent of list price received for the first time in a while has gone down, but just ever so slightly, only by 0.1%. So I don't even know if it's really worth diving into that. But overall, sellers are still getting basically what they're asking as long as their listing is priced reasonably and strategically. So that number came in at 99.6%. So the key there, sellers, if you're watching this, is to make sure that your price tag makes sense. There are a lot of ways to do that. I've made several videos about how I would do that. And actually, if you watch my video from last week entitled red flags for listing agents, I actually talk a little bit about pricing strategy, so you can jump over to that video and hear more about that topic there. Okay, median sold price per square foot decreased, but ever so slightly by less than 1%, landing at $318. But this is nearly a 4% increase year over year. Again, really not a whole lot to talk about here, although I will say it is always interesting to me when the median sales price increases, but the median price per square foot decreases. Again, we're talking about medians here and not averages, so sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles when you calculate the numbers. However, like I said, this metric is really not that big of a change, so I don't know if it's really worth making a fuss over it. It's just worth you knowing. Number of new listings decreased by 14.8%, coming in at 559 new listings. So I think this is speaking to what I mentioned a bit earlier, that a lot of sellers feel trapped in houses that they no longer love. There are some strategies to work around that. You could always keep the house that you have as a rental property and leverage the rental income to help offset the cost of a more expensive mortgage. There's a video that I actually made dedicated entirely to this topic, so you can scroll through my channel and find that. But I do believe that we are really seeing with this month's data specifically that this is kind of where we have officially arrived. We've been here for a while, but these numbers are the first time in a long time that we're really seeing evidence of what is happening. Active inventory increased somewhat significantly, landing at 870 active listings in our market. This is 8.3% more than we had at the closeout of May and 10.5% more than we had a year ago. So again, market is kind of at a standstill. I wouldn't even say that it's necessarily purely in the favor of the buyer or the seller, although I'm gonna get to that. There are kind of a lot of challenges on both ends of the transaction right now. Overall, this is just a really tough market for anybody who's playing ball. That doesn't mean that you can't or shouldn't. It just means that we really need to fine-tune your strategy. I'm gonna get into that in greater detail, but let's finish up with this last piece of data, and that is months supply of inventory, which landed at 2.2 months. This is actually a pretty massive increase month over month, almost 20% more than it was at the closeout of May, and more than 24% than it was year over year. You guys, that's actually a pretty big number. We still have a huge scarcity problem in our market. Make no mistake, this does not bring us anywhere near like the pre-pandemic inventory or anything like that, but it is kind of showing you that because of the market conditions, there is more, inventory coming online. There's going to be a little bit more competition for sellers. Buyers are a lot more picky right now. There is so much working against the buyer with the interest rates, the price tags. Soon, we're going to be dealing with the repercussions of the NAR settlement and how that's going to impact the buyer. That's a whole other video for a whole other time. It's really challenging when you look at the monthly payment amount for the buyer, even for a house with an entry-level price tag. Because of the interest rates being so high, it's costing buyers a lot of money to get in and get started. My advice for buyers is that despite all your challenges and despite that you are all appearing to be a little bit more picky in particular than you were even a month or a few months ago, you still need to come in with a competitive offer. You still need to put your best foot forward. You still need to have your financial game plan in order. You still need to not play games when you write your offer and come in strong with your price tag. You're going to want to make sure that you are decisive and act quickly. Yes, you can be a little bit more particular with a little bit more inventory, but there's a lot more buyers in the buyer pool right now just because of the time of year it is and because of the scarcity in our market. So if you do find something you like, you really don't have time to be like messing around. 16 days on market is not that long, even though it's slightly longer than it was a month ago. One metric that's not on this data sheet, but is something that I pay attention to, is number of pending sales, and this number did increase by more than 4%. This is indicative of sustained interest on the buyer side, which suggests that desirable properties are still moving really fast. So again, you need to be super decisive if you find the property that you're looking for. For sellers overall, the market is still in your favor. You still have increased price tags. You still have a really low count for days on market, even though it's higher than it was. You do have to keep in mind that buyers are being really particular right now just because of all the hoops they have to jump through, and the cost of borrowing money is super high. So, with that, and with more inventory coming on the market, you need to make your listing shine. It's not the time to be picking a discount broker or trying to DIY your photos or any of that nonsense. You need to make your listing look amazing, and you need to make it stand out against all the other listings that are similar to yours. In summary, while buyers face a competitive market with rising prices and limited inventory, not to mention high mortgage interest rates, sellers are still benefiting from strong market conditions. Both parties overall just need to have your you know what together and have a game plan and strategy in place, so you need a solid agent in your corner. All right, you guys, that was a lot of info. What questions do you have for me? You can leave a comment below, and I respond to every single comment on my page. That's something I don't take lightly. Or if you want to go further in depth, I would love to connect with you. If you have any questions at all about the market, or if you're thinking about moving here, or if you live here and you're thinking about buying and selling, I would love to see if we're a good fit to work together, or at the very least, help you put a strategic plan in place. There's a link to book a free, no obligation call with me in the show notes below. Just a chance to hop on a quick call and get your questions answered. And if you guys haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that like and that subscribe button. I put out new videos every single week about the Northern Nevada lifestyle, the Reno Sparks housing market, and of course, all things to do with buying and selling real estate. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week.